So if you have determined that they do present a risk to national security, then they must be, by inference, legit. No?
Matt, without getting too much into a philosophical conversation about what could be a threat to national security or not.
So let's just start with the, I don't expect that you're going to have a lot to say, but let's just start with all these documents that are floating around out in the ether, in the intranet.
Sure, Matt. So,
okay, no. Well, I'll just stop right there. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. You offered a natural pause, so I know I have a tendency to go ahead. Why don't I let you finish your question before I dive in?
What does the State Department have to say about them? Have you had any issues with friends, allies, partners related to these revelations?
Let me say a couple of things, Matt, and you, many of you probably just heard my colleague, Chris Marr, speak to this at the Pentagon. But after learning about the leak, the Department of Defense quickly referred the matter to the Department of Justice, which has opened a criminal investigation. The Pentagon has said they have taken steps to further restrict access to sensitive information, and an interagency effort has been initiated to review the national security implications of the disclosure and to mitigate this impact of the release of these documents that could have on U.S. national security, as well as the impact that it could have on our allies and partners. Broadly, what I would say, Matt, is that U.S. officials across the interagency are engaging with allies and partners at high levels over this, including to reassure them of our commitment to safeguarding intelligence and the fidelity of securing our partnerships as well. But I don't have any other specifics to get into.
Well, how's that going? Assuring your allies. And
again, Matt, it should be no surprise to you that I am not going to get into the specifics of private diplomatic conversations from up here.
Okay. Well, is it the case that the State Department is not aware that any of its own documents have been compromised?
So, Matt, I'm just not going to get into the specifics of this beyond saying what you've heard others across the interagency say, which is that the Department of Defense and the intelligence community are reviewing and assessing the validity of these documents. There is no question, of course, that they present a risk to national security, but I'm just not going to get into specifics beyond that.
Well, just if they do present a risk to national security, then that suggests that they are legit, right?
Matt, as I've said, the work is ongoing right now.
I could write something down on a piece of yellow paper and say whatever, and then give it to whoever, and they could put it out there. You wouldn't say that was a risk.
That is why the important work is ongoing right now, to review and assess the validity of those documents.
Well, but you just said that, I think, when we go back and look you just said that they do present a risk to national security. So if you have determined that they do present a risk to national security, then they must be, by inference, legit. No?
Matt, without getting too much into a philosophical conversation about what could be a threat to national security or not.
And they were just made up by someone, then they wouldn't be a risk, right?
I think fake information being out there can, of course, still be a threat to national security. Right. But what I will say broadly and leave it at is that the Department of Defense and intelligence community are working to review and assess the validity of these documents. Kylie.
So when you talk about communicating with allies to reiterate commitment to safeguarding intelligence, which allies have you had those conversations with thus far?
I'm just not going to get into the specifics of those conversations or read them out, but that work is ongoing, and we are engaging with allies and partners over this.
And are those proactive conversations and such that you're going to the countries that were mentioned in these documents, or is this in response to them reaching out to you with concerns about this information being in the public?
I'm not going to parse it more specifically than that. These engagements are ongoing. They're happening across the interagency. They're happening at the highest levels, and we're doing so with our allies and partners.
So, hold on, just So they're happening across the interagency. So is state taking the lead on those conversations, or is DoD having conversations, states having conversations, the White House is having conversations?
Well,
Can you
as the main diplomatic branch and agency of this administration, of course, the Department of State would have a role in communicating with our allies and partners. But these conversations are happening across the administration. U.S. officials are engaging with allies and partners at the highest level over this.
And just one last question.
Mhm.
Has this department implemented any measures to restrict access to classified information that's in this building as a result of this leak? For example, are officials who could print out classified documents in this building still allowed to do so?
Kylie, I just wouldn't get into the specifics of operational security decisions, regardless of the circumstance and what rules and policies that are in place. What I would say is that we take the security of our intelligence and classified documents very seriously. And of course, as I said at the top of this, there is an interagency effort that's been initiated to review the implications, but I'm just not going to get into any policy changes that have happened or not happened as it relates to this.